Welcome to Not This, Not That, where we push our boundaries of understanding and perception. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and I invite you to join me as we open to the possibility that things may not be exactly as you believe, as you've been told, that there could be more, that in our collective consciousness is the potential for the all. You can find Not This, Not That on the Sacred Stories podcast, on sacredstoriesmedia.com, and on iTunes and all streaming services. Click to subscribe and join us each show. Today, we are expanding our boundaries of understanding on the topic of living in divine communion. We have the pleasure of speaking with Dee Delaney, yogi and author of the trilogy of books, The Truth is Within. This beautiful trilogy chronicles Dee's true life story of living through the death of three partners and her soul's subsequent journey deep into the heart of the divine. So welcome, Dee Delaney, to Not This, Not That.
Hi, Patricia. It's good to be here with you. Hello.
Yeah, I'm really excited to speak with you. You know, we've been working together now through your entire trilogy. And in addition to me reading your books and just absolutely enjoying them thoroughly, I've been experiencing or feeling within you a kind of an unfolding or a deepening of your own journey, even beyond the books.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the books are, how would one say it? They're kind of raw because I am sharing my life on the page. And it's not always been easy because the journey has been long and tough in some ways. As you said in the introduction, I lost three partners and three young men in their 40s, and I'm approaching 50 myself. So that's been quite a cross to bear. And I moved to India from the West to come to the East to heal my heart and to write these books, thinking, if I'm honest, that I was just writing one book for my son, my little boy, because he was only one at the time when his daddy died. And when I moved to Goa, to a little fishing village where I live in the south of India, I realized I had a hell of a lot of healing to do. Book one turned into book two, which turned into a trilogy, which is called The Truth is Within. And I share with our readers kind of unveiling of myself to where I am now, which is someone who is a very different woman to the one who stepped on that plane from London, who is different inside and out, and who I like to say is living now in divine communion, which means living with myself in full awareness, living in communion with the world around me and with everyone else in the world. It's like the trinity of myself, the divine, and everything that comes into my experience.
So thank you for sharing that. I was interested in what living in the divine communion meant, and so thank you for sharing that. And I know that from this experience, an even deeper expression of spiritual wisdom has come through you in these teachings, and you've created what you call the 10 lessons for living in divine communion. And that's what we're going to speak about today. So the 10 lessons, very specifically, they're beautiful. They're written in prose, and I will in just a minute read each one and ask for your individual explanation or sharing of the wisdom. But how did the 10 lessons come to you to begin with?
Yeah, so when I arrived in India, something happened when I started to take my morning walk in the sand, and it's like Mother India wrapped her arms around me and embraced my soul. And I started to connect with this divine voice within. So this higher presence who I realized was within me all along. And it was quite profound writing these books because, as I've told you before, nothing was planned. And so this magical voice, this presence used to direct me and navigate me and say, Dee, go over there. And somebody would arrive that would give me the stories for my books. And these stories and the wisdom and the teaching was so profound that often I would be left in tears, almost overwhelmed by what was coming to me, because it felt incredibly guided, like I was being held, but being sent on this magical journey that I wasn't directing. And so eventually I started to write book 2, and book 3 came into life. And there was so much richness that I tried to distill the central teachings into these beautiful 10 lessons, which we're going to share with the listeners.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that because the books are beautiful, and it is the story, but they are so packed with not only the personal story, but with some greater spiritual teachings and wisdom, that this is beautiful that you were able to do this and following the voice of divine guidance. It's really beautiful how we are fully supported, how we are fully guided, how we are fully loved, on this journey.
It is, but it's not always. It's surprising, I always say that when I tried to guide it, Patricia, it would always go off in a different direction. It was like, I call her the goddess within. And she would just kind of grab me and say, Missy, you're going the other way. And whatever she had for me was infinitely more beautiful and richer than what I could ever dream for myself. So it really was a lesson in complete faith. And it kind of guided me to you as well with Sacred Stories Media. There was just this, everything happens in divine timing, and all I had to do was sit with myself and believe in the richness that was coming, and it came to me almost without trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is a beautiful, when we trust. And so when we live in communion, right? So that's what you said, living in relationship, right, with all that is. So let's go
the Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's the Trinity. It's the communion is with ourselves, with the divine, and with everyone else around us and everything else. It's that's what's really important, because what I realized was that everything and everyone around me became my teacher, as well as myself, as well as the divine. And that's a powerful, really powerful formula for life.
Yeah, no, and thank you. That's very, for mentioning that again, because that is a very, really interesting parallel, right? Of bringing the Trinity into living in divine communion, another way of looking at the beautiful Trinity that supports us in many ways. Okay, so let's go through each of the 10 lessons. So the first lesson is sit in silence and hear the sound of your soul. Listen to the one who is in control.
So when we sit in silence, we can hear this divine voice within ourselves. And it's the voice that guides us to a life that we can't really imagine for ourselves. And we realize that ultimately we're not in control.
So the second one is, let your heart be your guide. The wisdom of the universe is inside.
So when we listen to our hearts, we realize that this wisdom that we call our intuition is never wrong. And if we allow it to guide us, we can go into unimaginable places that we never dreamed of.
You right from the beginning of my journey, they would say, get out of your head and into your heart. And I think that's part of what, you're speaking to. There's so many dimensions to that statement.
Absolutely. And it's about connecting to your feelings. So it's the feelings, our feelings, which bring us back to our true selves. And so often in life, we're disconnected to our feelings because we've categorized them as good and bad and we've suppressed them. But what I say is we need to step into the feeling heart and out of the thinking mind to really get to know who we are.
So the third lesson is be the best that you can be, for it's only in the moment that we truly see.
Yeah, so I think the way we see ourselves, the reality of who we are in the world, is quite different to the way we live. We're multidimensional beings, and Einstein famously says that energy is everything and that's all there is to it. So an energy is only ever present in the now. So all we can ever be and ask for ourselves is to be the best that we can be in this present moment. Because when we are fully present in the now, that's when we truly see ourselves and the world around us.
Number 4, I am outside looking in. Life is an illusion. There is no sin.
So sin is a massive topic for me as somebody who was raised a Catholic. And sin is a creation of the mind and our thoughts and our corrupt nature, because there is no sin. We create the world we see around us through our mind and our hearts. And when we bring those together in union, we can paint a picture that's beautiful and create a world that's fabulous. But we need to trust and know that there is no sin. There is no sin. And it's a big one, that, because as children we've been given this story, many of us, from Adam and Eve and the story of original sin. And like many things that I've come into contact with, this for me is very much a metaphor for how we live, and it's a metaphor for duality and how we're separated from our true self. And when we step inside our heart and we come back to our authentic selves, we see that there is no sin.
Number 5, you are a ripple in the universe, creating each moment for better or worse.
Yeah, it kind of plays on from the previous point that we all have this power to co-create the lives we have. We are part of the cosmos and the cosmos is part of us. So it's the gift of life is in our hands to create it as we so desire. And when we turn the lens on ourselves and see the world with beauty and in love, then we create that experience for ourselves. And everything we learn from everything in the cosmos around ourselves as well.
Number 6, our purpose on earth is to love without remorse and to bring this wisdom back to source.
So I think we come to earth with our own unique lessons to learn, if you like. I like to call it, it's a bit like a big school. We come to earth to learn these lessons, and many of us come with karmic lessons that we need to learn, lessons of abandonment perhaps, or painful lessons. And life teaches us about these lessons and gives us experiences time and time again. We're on this great big cosmic wheel, and karma teaches us to see our lessons, to see that we're connected to each other, and to learn these lessons through compassion, forgiveness and love, through all of our life's experiences, and to eventually bring this wisdom back to source.
Number 7, hidden behind the stories we tell is a magical love, and it's under your spell.
So we connect to life and each other through stories, through ancient stories that weave through our blood and that are connected to the 7 chakras, the energetic centers in the body that we need to realign, cleanse and activate so that we can step into harmony. And as we move through the chakra system, we move through these stories until we reach the ultimate story, which is rebirth and liberation. We set ourselves free from the stories and realize that there is just love behind it all.
Number 8, the alchemy of suffering is not what it seems. It's an invitation to step into the heart and live your dreams.
So when we stop trying to control life and accept life and every flavor of life that comes to us, the good, bad and ugly, we learn not to suffer. And often suffering is a paradox. So many of us have walked a path of suffering. We've had difficult stories and we've had to walk through these to come out the other end, to realize that we don't need to suffer on this path to enlightenment, to reaching the light.
That is another really big part of my journey, and what I hope that Sacred Stories contributes to is the old, getting rid of the old paradigm of suffering and knowing that we can deepen into ourselves through joy. We can expand through joy and not the previous paradigm of suffering. So I love that that's part of your teachings as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it was a paradigm for the old world, but it ties into the previous lesson about dropping this story of suffering, because ultimately we don't have to suffer. We can find other ways to live, but we have to believe in that truth. And that takes a massive gear shift. But once we all collectively start to believe in it, it will become our reality for the new world that we're stepping into.
Well, and I think even going through the first 8 lessons, we can see there is that thread, right? There is that path or that roadmap, as you say, to get to this point. You know, I love that they're integrated and one really does lead to the next. It is truly the journey of the soul.
It is. And I think our children, though, their DNA is almost preset for this new world that we're stepping into, because I really don't believe that they're going to, and they are walking this path that we've walked. I think my son has said to me, "Mummy, I think you're taking it all away for us." So there's hope, you know. For me, that's a beautiful hope that we've done this work for those who come behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's just warmed my heart. The thought that is true, and I believe that as well. Okay, so 2 more. Number 9, there is no right or wrong. Love is the essence in every song.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because we come presets and we evolve with really strong belief systems. You know, as good people, you know, we have profound beliefs. So to say that there is no right and wrong, that really asks us to go deep into the heart. And it's not easy to do that, because we will still face challenging situations where we come across behavior that is contrary to what we believe. But actually, it's asking us to see things from a higher perspective and other people's perspective, to not get involved in the story, to meet the experience head on. We don't have to like it, but we let it pass. We do not become attached to it. And often we see beyond what's coming at us, and we see the love.
And the final lesson in the 10 lessons for living in divine communion is truth cannot be known. It is ever changing and not yours to own.
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me, because we become attached to what we believe in. Again, it feeds into the previous one. And I think it's asking us to ultimately let go of all belief systems, and to know that as we evolve, something that we profoundly believed in 3 years ago may not be our truth today. And that's okay. That's okay, because that is us evolving as the soul. Because as the soul journeys on and we gain more consciousness and we ascend, new pieces of wisdom come to us that we're now ready to receive. And it might be absolutely contrary to something that we fundamentally believed in 3 years ago. And that's okay. So it's asking those who walk this path to get comfortable with uncertainty and constant change.
And and that is, again, the journey of the soul, right? I mean, I love that these are so lyrical. They're beautiful. They're just even beautiful to say. Like when you say them, when I'm speaking them, it makes me feel joyful. It makes me feel happy. But there's such deep wisdom embedded in each one, which is a really beautiful gift that you've created here, Dee Delaney, with the 10 lessons for living in divine communion.
Yeah, because they come from the heart. I think for me, when I read them back, I do sometimes go, wow, was that me? But they've come from the divine. They've come from this higher place that I could only share them because I've walked this path, and I feel very humble, actually, to be able to share these, sometimes overwhelmed. Very humble. I think that's the best way I can describe it. There is a divine feminine presence in the way they're written, and I think this ties into this desire to share this wisdom in a new way, with a new voice, in a softer, kinder, more unified voice, actually, that's inclusive of everyone and everything, and they're written with absolute love, and that's why they're truth. Truth is love, ultimately.
It kind of gives me just hope listening to a softer, kinder, more unified, inclusive voice. I think the world needs that desperately. I think it's time for that. And so once again, Dee Delaney, I thank you for writing your trilogy of books, The Truth is Within. I thank you for distilling this deep spiritual wisdom from it into the 10 lessons for living in divine communion. Can you please tell our audience how they can further connect with you, your website or social media?
Absolutely. You can connect to me at deedelaney.co.uk, and you can email me directly there. And our soon to be produced podcast through sacredstoriesmedia.com. The Truth is Within podcast. We'll be working on that, and we'll give you an update when that's available on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you again for joining us today.
And Patricia, thank you for believing in me and my story and bringing this wisdom to a wider world. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's our joy to work with you. And yes, we believe in you. That is for sure. So, and the world, I think, will know Dee Delaney, and hopefully these beautiful 10 lessons for living in divine communion will be part of our everyday communication sooner than later. What a beautiful world that would be, right, Dee?
Yeah, absolutely. It's time.
It is
It's
absolutely.
time.
It is time. So I invite everyone to connect further with Dee at deedelaney.co.uk, and again her books and soon to be released podcast on her journey and her teachings. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and you have been listening to Not This, Not That, available on Sacred Stories Podcast.